Good evening, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start by just giving a little bit of background to myself and the Solar Sky Museum. I had no choice in getting involved in the Solar Sky Museum because it was started by my father and the other gentleman up here, John Clark. So I've grown up with the museum. The original museum was in the centre of Southampton, and the aim of that original museum was to tell the story of R.J. Mitchell, the Spitfire and Supermarine. In the early 1980s, it moved from its location to where it is down now, near Ocean Village, or what was Ocean Village, and it expanded its brief. It expanded its brief to tell the story of the aviation industry in the Solent area. And between 1910 and really up to the 1970s, this area was a real hotbed of aviation activity. There was something like 28 aircraft companies manufacturing aircraft right the way across the area. And that legacy still exists today. There's still a lot of organisations and companies around who can trace their roots back to those early days of aviation. In fact, I think we've got two representatives here from Southampton Airport, which plays an incredibly important part in this story. So, the museum itself is an independent museum, and it's driven and run on two things: passion and bloody-mindedness. The two attributes that got the Spitfire in the air to start off with back in the late 1930s. And after that kind plug from Lord Montague, I'd like to urge you all, if you haven't, or if you have already, come back and see us down in Southampton. You really will enjoy what we've got. We've got about 14 aircraft there in total. Right in the centre is the big flying boat, the big Sandringham flying boat. But still centre to the story is the Spitfire, and the Spitfire story, centre to the exhibition. So you've got to ask, why Spitfire? Why does the Spitfire hold such an important place in our heart? Well, you can have lots and lots of technical debates about the Spitfire. Was it better than other aircraft technically? You can have sort of military history discussions about the strategy of the Spitfire and did it play an important part in all those battles that it was in. But above all that, for me, above all that, for me, the Spitfire has become a symbol. Yeah, hey. You again, legends. The Spitfire has become a symbol. It became a symbol really early on in the darkest days of 1940. It became a symbol of hope. And it went on to become a symbol of bravery, of engineering excellence. And today we really look at it as a symbol of remembrance as well. And I think that that is the key thing about the Spitfire to remember, is that symbol and what it sums up. Now, I have a mantra, or a saying, if you'd like, that behind every piece of metal is a story. And it doesn't matter what that piece of metal is. It might be a steam engine. It might be a rusty nail from HMS Victory. It might be a car. It might be an aircraft. But there's always a story, a narrative to tell. And I'd like to show you a very important piece of metal tonight. Right, for the engineers among you, you may recognise this tool. It's a hammer, but not just any hammer. This hammer, the hammer head, is made from a wing bolt of K5054, the prototype Spitfire, which first flew in 1936. Now, the story goes that when the aircraft was scrapped, an eagle-eyed apprentice nicked the wing bolt, took it home, made it into a hammer, put it in his tool case, used it all through his career, and then presented it to the museum a couple of years ago. It is, as far as we know, the only remaining piece of K5054, the only piece of the prototype Spitfire, which is quite something. But when you look at it, Spitfire DNA starts with this piece of metal. We know that Mitchell would have seen this fly through the air. He may have seen it in the factory. He may have even handled it himself. We know that this is where the Spitfire starts. So when you look at it, you don't see just a piece of metal. It's the story behind this piece of metal. The story of the tens of thousands of people who built Spitfires right the way across this country. the thousands of pilots, men and women, who flew the aircraft, the thousands of people who kept the aircraft flying, right the way across the world, from England through Malta into Burma. So when you look at this, you don't see that piece of metal, you see the human story behind this piece of metal. And I think that's really key. The film we're going to see tonight, I think does that real justice. When you see this film, you won't see just a piece of metal. You will see those stories behind that piece of metal. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the film to you. Ladies and gentlemen, Spitfire.